Today, we're going to try and do the impossible. We're going to crack open the mind of a chess legend, figure out how they see the board, and really the world so differently from the rest of us. So let's start the climb. So what is it that truly separates a good player from a legend like Garry Kasparov? Is it just pure memorization? Some kind of superhuman calculation? Well, the answer is so much deeper. It's not just about knowing more moves. It's about a completely different way of thinking. And to get our heads around that way of thinking, we're going to use an analogy. We're going to climb a pyramid, the pyramid of mastery. And this journey is going to take us from the absolute basics, the fundamentals every player has to get right, all the way to the top, to the strategic and psychological genius that defines a true grandmaster. Okay, so our journey starts right at the bottom, at the base. And you know, the first step to thinking like a master is to stop thinking like a beginner. You have to stop making those common, crucial mistakes. You've got to build a solid foundation before you can even dream of building a masterpiece. Okay, let's look at maybe the single biggest trap for new players. You know the feeling, right? You look at your queen, she's the most powerful piece on the board, and your first instinct is just, attack! But a grandmaster knows that's a huge mistake. Bringing her out too early just paints a giant target on her back. You end up wasting all these precious moves just trying to stave her, while your opponent is just calmly developing their knights and bishops and, well, taking complete control of the board. And oh, it definitely doesn't stop there. Masters, they just don't waste time pushing a bunch of pawns when they should be getting their bigger pieces into the game. They get their king to safety, they castle, they fight tooth and nail for control of those critical central squares. And maybe most importantly, something Kasparov always emphasized, they make sure their pieces are working together in harmony. If you break any of these rules, it's like trying to build a house on sand. It's just going to collapse. All right, so once that foundation is rock solid, then you can start building your arsenal. We're moving up to level 2. And this is all about the tactical weapons, the real tools a master uses to just actively dismantle their opponent's game. First up, we've got this brilliant, kind of sneaky concept called neutralization. See, you don't always have to capture a piece to beat it. Neutralization is the art of trapping your opponent's key piece, say their powerful queen, and making it so it has literally no good moves. It's still physically on the board, but for all intents and purposes, it's a ghost. It's completely useless to their plans. And this next one, this reveals a huge shift in mindset. A beginner who's under attack, they almost always defend. It's just instinct. But a master, they ask a different question. They ask, wait, can I counterattack? So instead of just reacting to the threat, they create an even bigger threat somewhere else on the board. All of a sudden, you're forcing your opponent to react to you. You've just seized control of the game's tempo. Okay, now we're climbing to a truly elevated level of thinking. This is where we separate the great players from the absolute legends. We're talking about strategic sacrifice. And this isn't some simple one-move tactic. No, this is about giving up valuable material, a powerful piece, for some kind of long-term, often invisible advantage. It's about seeing the future of the game. And you know what? There is no better example of this than a game many people call the greatest chess game ever played. The year is 1999. It's Garry Kasparov playing with the white pieces against Veselin Topalev. This game has a move so profound, so brilliant, that it's still being studied and admired decades later. So Kasparov gets to this position on the board, and he does the unthinkable. He gives up a rook, one of his most powerful pieces, just gives it away. So why? Why would he do that? Because he saw something deeper. He understood that in return he would gain what's called the initiative. That's the ability to create threat after threat so relentlessly that his opponent would have zero time to breathe. That kind of pressure, well, it was worth way more than any piece. And just look at how it all unfolded. First, you have the setup. Every single one of Kasparov's pieces was perfectly placed like a coiled spring, aimed right at the enemy king. Then, the sacrifice.
With the move rook takes d4, he just electrified the entire chess world. And that one move launched this unstoppable king hunt. It forced Topolov's king on this desperate run all the way across the board, until finally the attack was just overwhelming. It was an absolute masterpiece of strategic vision.
So, we've made it. We've reached the very top of the pyramid. And up here, you know what? It's not really about the moves on the board anymore. This final level, it's about the mind. It's about the discipline and the sheer force of will that it takes to become a true champion.
So what does it really take to get here? Let's start with a little reality check. 3,000. That's the number. 3,000 hours. That's the minimum number of hours of focused, deliberate practice that researchers think it takes just to become a local master. And to reach the very top, that number can climb as high as 30,000 hours. Greatness is not a gift. It is forged in a crucible of absolutely relentless work.
And Kasparov himself basically laid out the blueprint for this. It all starts with having ironclad mental toughness, being able to handle insane pressure. But it's also about how you train. He said to study the endgames first, because that's where you learn a piece's true power. You have to always train with a clock, because at this level, time itself is a weapon. And finally, and this is huge, you have to remember, you're not just playing the board. You're playing the mind of the person sitting across from you. They're always looking for that psychological edge. So you see, when you climb this pyramid, the game itself completely transforms. It evolves from, a simple board game into this fierce battle, a battle of strategic ideas, of breathtaking creativity, and of just pure sheer force of will. Which, brings us to our final question. After seeing all this, the deep calculation, the beautiful sacrifices, the intense psychological warfare, what do you think chess truly is? Is it a precise science, a creative art, or is it a brutal fight? Maybe, just maybe, in the mind of a grandmaster, it's all three at the exact same time.